All right, here we go. I don't have no video clips for y'all today. I don't have no Facebook posts, no comments to run across the screen to show you guys. It's just you and me and these motherfucking words that I'm about to hit y'all with. Let me plug the joint. Treating every woman the same is the foundation for consistency. Again, treating every woman the same is the foundation for consistency. You know, there's a couple of different things that guys do that cause them issues with women, whether you're casually dating women or if you're actually in a long term relationship and possibly even a marriage. And one of those things that come back to ultimately be a detriment to some of you men is the fact that you're an inconsistent man. You lack consistency. And the reason why a lot of guys lack consistency is because you're too influenced by things outside of you. And those things outside of you aren't influenced enough by you. Let me say that shit again. The reason why you guys lack consistency is because you're too easily influenced by things outside of you. Okay? That could be your parents, it could be your friends, it could be your coworkers, it could be society, it could be women. You're too easily influenced by things outside of you. And because of that, you're inconsistent with your dealings with people because each time someone different influences you, you respond differently, right? Now, if you were more consistent, those things outside of you would be more influenced by you. One of the reasons, well, one of the main reasons why guys have problems establishing and maintaining boundaries and parameters when dealing with women is because you're not consistent. Not only with the establishment of those boundaries and those parameters, but also the enforcement of those boundaries and parameters. You don't enforce it. And the reason why guys don't enforce it, one, you're inconsistent, but the reason why that is because you're influenced by the woman. You don't want to lose access to the woman. Okay? Whether it be you don't want to lose access to the sex, you don't want to lose access to the companionship, to the intimacy, whatever it may be. Treating every woman the same is the foundation for consistency. Let me tell y'all a story, and I told this story before. This is nothing new. When I met my ex-wife, right? My last relationship. Okay, when I met my ex-wife, right? Immediately when I met her, when I was introduced to her, the day I was introduced to her, I knew right away. I knew right away there was something about her where I said to myself, there's something about her. I'm very much curious and there's definitely intrigue. I want to know more. There's something about her. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I have a feeling she's going to end up being more of a part of my life than just someone I'm fucking. I don't know what it is, but there's something about her. But guess what I had to do? Guess what I had to do? Although I sensed it, and then as we got to dealing with each other, she proved my intuition right. She proved my instincts to be right. I end up marrying her, right? But the point is this: although I sensed something and I realized something, I still had to put her through the paces. Now, for those of you who don't know, right, you should by now, right? In my adult life, okay, when I say in my adult life, I'm meaning since I graduated from high school. Okay, I'm not talking about being a teenager, I'm talking about after, specifically from my 20s on up until this very day. In my adult life, I've been in 4 relationships, right? 2 of them were marriages, and the other 2 were just long-term relationships. All 4 of these relationships slash marriages, 2 of them, they all started out the same. Carrie, what do you mean they started out the same? They all started out as fuck buddies. Every last one of them. Fuck buddies. Now, the difference between the 4 was the last relationship I had, which ultimately turned into a marriage, right? When I met her, again, I knew right away, there's something about her. But although I sensed it, I still had to put her through the paces. I still had to put her in the fuck buddy category. I had to do it. I had to do it. So what guys don't understand, when I say treating every woman the same as the foundation for consistency, all 4 of those women were uniquely different women. But it didn't matter that they were different. What mattered was that I stayed consistent with my identity, with who I am as a man. I stayed consistent. I have a certain way that I do things, and I stayed consistent with how I do things. Period. Okay, and one of the reasons, there's a myriad of reasons, but one of the reasons is part of your consistency is discipline, right? Also, consistency is the DNA of mastery. Let me say that shit again. Consistency is the DNA of mastery. Okay, we speak all the time. I speak all the time on how you should be trying to master manhood. You should be trying to master yourself. You cannot, number one, let me just say this about manhood. Nobody will ever master it. Okay, you will go to your grave still trying to master manhood. But part of mastering manhood is mastering yourself. It's understanding who you are and then presenting that person consistently to the world outside of you, right? So although those women were uniquely different women with different personalities, I stayed the same. I was the same. Now, here's the thing. When you're dealing with women, once you have put those women through the paces, if you will, and once those women have proven to you over an extended period of time that they can be consistent, let me say that shit again. Because if you are an inconsistent man, you're not going to be able to discern the inconsistencies in the women that you're dealing with. You're going to think that shit is normal. Why? Because for you, you being inconsistent, you being a procrastinator, you being wishy-washy, you being indecisive, that's your norm. So if you run into a woman who exhibits those same attributes, you don't think nothing of it. But if you get into a relationship with that woman, that could prove to be a detriment to you. So here you have it, a classic case of the blind leading the blind. There is nothing worse than an indecisive man who is inconsistent dealing with a woman who craves consistency, but you lack it. Point out any woman in the world. They have a story about dealing with an inconsistent man. In many cases, men, meaning plural, not singular. Damn near every woman has more than one story about dealing with inconsistent men and the trouble that that personally caused them. Because I'm going to tell you something. When you're not consistent, you reek of the fact that you're not reliable. You reek of the fact that you're not dependable. You reek of the fact that people can't put no trust in you because you're inconsistent. If you are inconsistent in a relationship, you might have a woman who might believe in your leadership qualities at first, and then you show her inconsistency. Now she can't trust you. And I'm going to tell you something. After the trust goes, after the fact that people can't depend on you or rely upon you, ultimately, inevitably, what comes next? Yeah, you got it. Respect. Treating every woman the same is the foundation for consistency. So although I'm gonna go back to my ex, although I realized pretty quickly there's something about her. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But I remember when I got introduced to her, I remember looking at her because she's a little short, she's like 4'11. I remember looking at her and I said to myself, there's something about this little chick. That's what I said to myself. Carrie, there's something about this little chick. I mean, other than she cute and she, anyway, other than the visual aspect of her, there was something about her. Couldn't put my finger on it, but I said, there's something about her. I need to know more. So, although I knew that I was ultimately going to put her in the fuck buddy category, I simultaneously also realized, shit, if I'm right about her, she won't stay there too long. She won't stay there too long. And sure enough, pretty much right away, within the first couple of weeks, hashtag her debit card works too. You know what I'm saying? She was, I mean, outside of that, it was more to it than just that. But I'm kind of simplifying what was going on, right? But that was part of it too. You know what I'm saying? She had no problem swiping that motherfucker for your boy. But my point is this. Let me get back to the joint. Treating every woman the same is the foundation for consistency. Once you establish consistency in your life, believe it or not, that is a newfound standard. Okay, let me say that shit again. Once you establish consistency in your life, that is a newfound standard, or it should be a newfound standard of yours. Although it may not have been a standard. And here's the beautiful thing about standards, real standards. See, you can go from a person who's I can't even talk. Give me a second. Got cotton mouth like a mouth. All right, let's try that over. Okay, you can go from an inconsistent man who is not very principled and you lack standards to a man who is now a principled man with standards. Okay? If you change your mindset, you change your habits. If you change your habits, you form a foundation of consistency. So, what happens now when you deal with women, you don't accept shit that you may have accepted in the past. Okay. You're more keenly aware of things that are out of place. Okay. What do you mean you're more keenly aware of things that are out of place? Let me tell y'all something. Because I'm big on consistency and I'm consistent, anytime a woman is inconsistent with what she is saying and or doing, I notice the slightest hiccup, the slightest change in behavior, right? It's kind of like a pattern, right? You see, you look at a pattern, you can see a disruption in that pattern. When you are astutely aware, when you have astute observation, you see a pattern. You see a slight disruption in that pattern. And then you look, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. There's something here that doesn't belong here. It doesn't go here. I must address this, right? Guys who are ultimately inconsistent men are guys who are heavily influenced by the behaviors of women. When you're consistent, women are heavily influenced by your behavior. And that's the natural order of things, is for women to be influenced by the man. Now, there is a negative side and a positive side to that, because if women are dealing with a guy who's a horrible leader and he doesn't know what he's doing, she's literally following him off a cliff. Okay, and let me just speak to that for a moment. Okay, let me say that shit again. When women, and all these women that are complaining on the internet, all of them have followed a man off the cliff. And in many cases, a lot of these women, they followed multiple men off of a cliff. Now, unfortunately, for some of them, they don't take personal accountability or responsibility for choosing to follow men who aren't worthy to lead. But back to you guys, though. And a lot of you guys, and if you're not that guy, then you know that guy. You're related to that guy. You work with that guy who leave women worse than when they found them. So what you have a bunch of bitter chicks who are out here in the dating pool, right? And they're bitter because all they've known is inconsistent men. All they've known is inconsistent guys. So when I say leave a woman better than where you found her, that means she understands what it's like to be around a dominant, authoritative, assertive, masculine man who's consistent. He does what he says and he says what he's going to do. And they align, they add up. She doesn't have to wonder with him. She doesn't have to guess and figure out what he's going to do next. She understands this is who he is. This is how he is. He's consistent. And let me just say this about security, because people talk about how women are always looking for provision and security. Do you know consistency is security? Let me say that shit again. Do you know consistency is security? So when you think about secure, what do you think about? A lack of security. What do you think about? A person who's secure, right? Is when there's consistency. When there's lack of consistency, what do you think about? Someone who's insecure, right? To be insecure about something means to worry, right? It means you lack self-assuredness in something. Oh, I don't know about that. You know, maybe that will work out, maybe it won't. You're insecure about that. You're worrying. There's a lack of assuredness, right? So when a woman is dealing with an inconsistent man, she's always worrying. She doesn't know what's going to come next with this guy. This is why a lot of times when you guys end up dealing with these women and they're inquisitive, can't even talk, inquisitive, right? They'll kind of challenge you a little bit on, so what is it that we're doing? What are we doing here? And they're questioning you on basically their role in your life. It's because you're inconsistent, right? Your words and your actions aren't matching up. Now, here's the thing about your words and your actions. Women are always going to pay attention to your actions. Okay, your actions, right? But here's the problem. Women cannot just simply pay attention to your actions but ignore your words, right? Especially when there's arguments that ensue, right? When there's any type of issue with what's being said versus what's being done. Let me plug the joint. Treating every woman the same is the foundation for consistency. Gentlemen, being consistent is extremely important. I assure you, if a lot of you are actually more consistent in your day-to-day life, when you actually deal with women, that consistency would actually carry over to your dealings with women. You don't treat women different. Like I heard guys say, oh, if I meet a chick at a club and she's dressed in a provocative manner, I'm gonna treat her like a hoe. I'm gonna treat her like an easy chick I can just have sex with and just leave by the wayside. But if I meet a woman who doesn't really go out a lot and she dressed very modestly, I'm gonna automatically look at her different. Thus, I'm gonna treat her different. You are the guys that get manipulated the easiest. Why do you think the whole red pill movement even came to exist? The whole MGTOW movement even came to exist. Those movements came to exist because guys lacked consistency. They were not consistent in how they viewed themselves, and they were not consistent when it came to their dealings with women. So what did they do? They automatically treated this group of women different than that group based on superficial shit, right? Or they treated this woman better than that woman based on superficial shit, when what they should have done was treat every woman the same. And if they would have treated every woman the same, they would have realized this chick over here who looks to be promiscuous and all that on the surface probably isn't as bad as they assumed. But they never paid attention to anything beyond the sex, so they never saw it. Whereas this woman over here, because they were led to believe that what they were seeing was the real deal, they lacked the consistency to be able to discern. They didn't have any discernment for this woman because they automatically believed that they were looking at and dealing with a virtuous good girl and then they ended up getting treated like they thought they would have got treated from the chick at the club that was just dressed in a very provocative fashion. So what guys end up doing is, oh, these chicks is 304s. No, you just lack the consistency to be able to discern which woman is actually better for you. If you looked a little bit deeper, if you look past the surface of things, you would have saw that. But because you're an inconsistent man and you haven't mastered anything, you haven't mastered yourself, you don't even know who the fuck you are, you have no clue about your identity, you just automatically group women in one category because it's easier for you to do that. Because see, it takes work to actually have some introspection and look within and figure out what you're doing wrong. It's far easier to group women in one category and just label all women the same. That's easy. You don't have to do no work. You'll just be and remain an inconsistent motherfucker. I'm out.